Cheerio, lads. So today we have a rare diecast model. It's called a LaFesta. I'm not sure exactly when they came out. There are a few YouTube videos on them, but this is a LaFesta brand, and the black car here is an AC Ace, but it's damaged. So this is going to be my second restoration project. It's going to be quite a challenge, I think. But before I get into that, let's just take a look at the car and pretend it has a windshield. So that's the windshield, by the way, of a real car. Okay, so the AC Ace here, it's a British car company, and this car was manufactured between 1953 and 1963, and it had a tube frame made out of steel for the chassis. It had a leaf independent suspension, and this version has a 2-liter Bristol engine. Bristol, I believe, is a British company as well. It's an inline 6-cylinder up here, which would explain why the hood is so long. And then it made around 120 horsepower, which could actually get it up to like 116 miles per hour, which I think would probably be pretty scary in a car like this because it has such narrow tires. It probably was very light and probably not very stable at those speeds. But it did still have pretty good racing success. It ran in the Le Mans 24-hour races a few times, and in 1959 it won its 2-liter class and also came in 7th overall, where the first 6 cars were 3-liter engines, though, so 30% more capacity. It still came in 7th, so that's a pretty remarkable, ranking. For those that don't know, the reason why I showed that other car later on, Carol Shelby approached AC about fitting, the chassis of this AC Ace with the Ford V8 engine, and that's what led to this historic icon of American car culture. But before that, we had to have this, the AC Ace. Okay, so let's get back to it. So the wire wheels, they're not so great. They're blanked off. I guess it's, acceptable because it's pretty hard to duplicate wire wheels in this scale. As you saw earlier, the tires they look period correct. They look pretty narrow. If you look at the picture behind, the tires are pretty narrow. It's nice to see that there's a brand information here. So we have the AC Ace Bristol and Forza copyright, SPA. I'm not sure what that is. Not sure what this says here. It's hard to see on my camera screen. Let me go. I can't even read it with my own eyes, so I don't know. JTB Motivations Inc. I don't know what any of those are. Okay, as I say, I think this is an old model riveted together here. Okay, so obviously, we got a lot of problems. This is obviously part of someone's personal collection. Maybe a kid even owned it and played around with it. So that's a really deep gouge. I don't think I'm going to polish that out. The reason why I bought this car is because they're very rare. Like on eBay, there's one person selling one for like $50, and it's not even this car. So they're just, I guess, super rare. So I managed to pick this up for like $5. And I guess that's a decent price to pay for something like this now. So anyways, the interior is looking nice. You got the ribbing here and a couple extra colors here for the instruments. Steering wheel is gone though. I didn't notice that before. Maybe I'll 3D print a new one. Shifter there. Okay. The body panel lines are pretty wide. They're not the greatest. If I had to guess, I think these models weren't very expensive when they're new. Maybe probably less than $10. Okay, I painted on taillight and it's chipped off. Same here. Some silver paint for these bumperettes and chipping off. Some actual depth to the exhaust tips. It's just the silver paint is chipped off. Plastic inserted headlights. Those are pretty nice. I guess I could polish those smoother. And then some silver paint here in this textured grille. And then silver paint there as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty nice looking model. It's just missing the windshield and the steering wheel. So what I'm thinking is I bought this thing by accident, and it's like a cartoon car made by Aoshima, so that's why the proportions look ridiculous. Like the cabin's so tall because it's actually replicating a car from a Japanese cartoon. So, and then obviously the paint bubbling here. Let's just see for curiosity's sake here. I'm trying to rip that open, see if you can do that. It's actually pretty hard to rip up paint bubbling. Look at this. I'm trying to literally destroy it. And it's actually hard to do. So, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, anyways, what I'm thinking, though, is maybe I could take this glass here and just with a file, maybe, and I can file it down and maybe get it close to the car we see behind us. And then if I maybe paint the edges with the silver Sharpie or something, I don't know. We'll see. I'm pretty sure that gouge though. I'm not sure if that's gonna come out. So I might try repainting the whole body as well, because there's no branding. There's nothing saying AC Ace anywhere. So with no actual branding, I can duplicate everything else with just some silver paint, and should look close to new again. Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe I'll never post this video. Okay guys, I'm back after like 3 days of work. I have a newfound appreciation for nicely painted cars. You know, I always complain about orange peel. I can understand why it happens. It's really hard to paint these things to be smooth. But I managed to do it, it seems. And I also changed the color while I was at it. So I want to talk about, how I went about doing this. First I thought, should I just paint it black? Well, I don't really like black cars because the colors vanish when they're glossy. Matte black seems to be okay, but glossy black, it's hard to see the details. So I switched over to the sky blue paint, and I'll talk about the paints here. This is the brand I use. It's called Vallejo, and I primed it first because I'm afraid of paint bubbling in the future. I don't know if this primer helps out or not, but I think a lot of people use this paint for like those miniature wargaming things. So those are die-cast metal, I believe, as well. So I'm hoping this will actually keep it from bubbling up in the future. And then you have this normal paint here called watercolor. You have to cut this with water. You can just use any tap water, so that's why I like this brand. Whereas Tamiya paints have to use IPA and other solvents. It's not good for your health. All right, so this is the same brand, but it says air, so it's actually liquidy. It already has a lot of water in it, so you can put it into an air gun. And then I use some red for the taillights and stuff. And then I glossed the heck out of it a couple times, because even with an airbrush, it was really hard to lay the paint on so it would lay smooth. It just wanted to inherently have an orange peel effect to it. So it was quite a bit of experimentation and learning. I actually had to strip the paint off this car like 3 different times before I got it to this level, and it's still not perfect. But that's why I guess I buy die-cast models and not make die-cast models. So it's definitely worth it for me to just buy these things instead of try to make them. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that I took that windshield from that junk car that I had, this junk Aoshima thing, and it did manage to trim it down. I used a file, and I just carefully filed it down further and further, and it seems alright, I guess. Maybe I should show the car behind here. So it's a relatively short windscreen, and it's got these little side windows that I retained from the original plastic. I 3D printed a steering wheel, and it actually looks like the real steering wheel in the real car, although I had to magnify it so it could actually 3D print. The rim itself is pretty thick, but there's no way around it for me. Okay, and then I filled in the spokes with this black Panaline stuff that is from Tamiya. This stuff here, Panaline accent color, is really liquidy black, so you just run it in, and then I go over it with a Q-tip to clean up the spokes again. So I think it adds a little more depth to the wheels. This little gas cap was a separate plastic piece. It fell out when I was stripping the paint off, so I just popped it back in after I painted it silver. I painted all this stuff silver again, and I drilled out the exhaust a little bit so that hole's a little more uniform. A really small drill bit, of course. The paint wash again, well, in the grill here, I used the silver Vallejo paint, and then I used that black paint wash again to fill in the rectangles black. So you notice the silver paint's pretty rough because I haven't clear coated it. I clear coated the blue, but I didn't clear coat over the silver, and just out of laziness, I'm not sure if I'm going to go back and clear coat this car because I already glued the windshield on. So I used some crazy glue on the windshield. Alright, and so you can see the orange peel there, right? It's really hard to get this stuff smooth. You have to find the right point where the paint lays on thick enough to smooth itself out, but not so much paint that it starts to run. That's what I was afraid of. So I guess, I'm not going to waste time polishing this smooth. I could probably take this polishing compound and actually smooth the clear coat out, but I'm also thinking I might cut right through the paint and then I'd have to start all over again. So I'm going to just leave it the way it is. All I know is it looks better than when I first got it, but it's definitely not as good as a factory model. I mean, look at that Kyosho next to it. Look at that windshield. It's got a bunch of cool stuff going on, right? And multiple colors that was really hard for me to paint. You know, I painted a little silver around my windshield, but it wasn't easy. You gotta be really patient trying to make things like this. So anyways, I learned my lesson. I learned that if I spend 3 days and a whole lot of hours on something, I can do it, but it's just not worth it for me. I'm much happier just buying a finished model. Okay guys, well I guess that's it for today, and I'll see you guys. Bye.